Shadow to Sunlight is the title track of the album because I thought it best kind of captured a theme that is expressed in many of the songs. Actually, it's a theme of realizing the depth and the beauty that's kind of hidden in everyday moments, and also of actualizing our potential to take part in them. I've relatively recently been married and moved to a new city and started a new role, but all of that has been kind of settling in as the new normal, and so I felt like I've been challenged to examine that normalcy and really find all the richness that it has to offer. I think that most of us are really wanting more fulfillment out of our lives, out of our jobs and our relationships and even our walks of faith, but we're not really knowing how to find it because I think we're so conditioned to seek fulfillment in things other than Christ and the fact that He's near to us. I believe so strongly that God gives us glimpses of Him, of His character, of His kingdom, all the time, and that most often it's right in the middle of our daily routines and the normal parts of our lives. So in a way, this song expresses the journey that I feel like I'm on and the perspective that I'm trying to adopt. So I'm really excited about the song Not Over Now. In my experience, walking with the Lord is just that. It's a walk, it's gradual, it's consistent, it develops over time. You may have milestones along the way, you may stumble and fall along the way, but it's a journey. I have a tendency in my life to look back over the seasons that have passed and see how God has moved, seeing how He's worked, how He's been involved, how He's been leading and guiding me. But even my awareness of those things is a gradual thing. One of the things I really love to do is to take a long drive. It's a very recuperative and reflective thing for me. And so with this song, what I wanted to try to do was personify my walk with the Lord as if it were almost like a road trip. So I start out with not much more than curiosity and a distant calling. But I'm still a little bit skeptical as to whether or not what I'm chasing after is even real or not. Then as the journey goes on, and I have more investment in the faith, more involvement in the faith, but I realize, it's not about what I do or how well I perform, but how much of my heart that I give to the Lord. And then finally, I hope to reach the destination, so to speak, where I have skin in the game and I'm really compelled by the fact that God Himself was willing to be crucified, and let that compel me to be more fully devoted to it. The song We're Not Alone was really an interesting one to work through and to create. As humans, we don't have the privilege of seeing the entire path laid out before us. We can't see the entirety of our lives and the journey that we're going to take. We have to take one step at a time. And sometimes we can find ourselves in really unstable and uncertain situations where we're asking the question, how did I get here? What is the purpose that I'm going through right now? We can be wading through all these feelings of doubt and confusion. When I moved to Dallas, I was really excited about the new season that I was stepping into in a lot of ways. But I was also really grieving the loss of a lot of things, a previous role that I had played, of so many important relationships in my life, and just a life that I had come to know and love. We have a tendency to separate ourselves out in groups, right? We tend to congregate toward people that may look like we do, or that believe or think like we do, or that behave like we do, or in some similar phase of life as we are. And part of that is really natural and it's really good, but we also need to be careful how far that extends. In matters of the faith, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of division take place, whether that was in between Orthodox Christianity and members of other faith, and also within our own faith, there's been a lot of division. Instead of seeing how each church can paint a little piece of the portrait of God, from the emerging church under a bridge to the immaculate cathedral on the corner of downtown, we've chosen to divide ourselves up into the you're in and you're out clubs. The truth is that not one human institution or expression can completely encompass the vastness of God, but each can be a very unique window into who He is, and each one is enough to know His heart. Instead of getting in disagreements or arguing about the differences in opinion when it comes to matters of the faith, we should be celebrating the fact that not even 41,000 Christian expressions can encompass the whole of who He is. He's more vast than that. He is bigger than all of that. There's a huge need for reconciliation in the church today, within the church and between the church and the modern world. So hopefully this song is encouragement to lay down our arms and to learn to enjoy the aspects of God that we were never meant to fully comprehend anyway, and learn to value people again. The song Voices was patterned after Psalm 119, which was a song, it was a hymn that declared the importance of God's word to His people. And Psalm 119 was also written in an acrostic poetic form, and it moved through each letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And another thing I love about that psalm, as with so many psalms, are the bold prayers that it contains. I think it's amazing that we can approach the Lord with that kind of transparency, with those kinds of really raw requests. So I wanted to write a song that contained a lot of the prayers that are consistent with Psalm 119, but also that followed that same acrostic poetic pattern. Hopefully this song expresses some of those common core prayers that are close to the hearts of those people trying to follow Jesus. And prayer is this very intimate thing, but it's also a very powerful corporate thing as well. And so musically, with this song, we wanted to convey both. In the beginning, the song sounds very close, very personal, and then it grows dynamically into a crying out of God's people in a way, almost as if the prayers are being lifted up to God. And I also like to think of the piano cadenza at the end almost as God's response to those prayers, as this beautiful whisper that he answers His people with. I will be quick to say that marriage is a blast, but it is also very hard work. Lauren and I, throughout this first year of marriage, we are still learning how to communicate effectively, how to disagree or even argue well. And that's a tough thing to do, mainly because I'm incredibly stubborn. But when two people disagree about something, or when there's some kind of miscommunication, I think it's so easy to think that your point of view is the right one, and to try everything in your power to convince the other person to see the error of his or her ways and convert them to yours, obviously. But what I'm realizing is that is not all that effective of a strategy. My wife and I realized what I think is the greater truth. It's not about winning the other person to your side, and I don't think it's even about compromise necessarily, although that's a really valuable principle. It's about each person trying to adopt the perspective of a third party, of Jesus, the person of Jesus, and trying to listen to His voice in the matter. Learning to see each miscommunication or each argument as a chance for two people to grow closer to Christ and His perspective, His truth. that's really where the battle is. And that's really tough to do. But I think it can really refine a marriage and refine a person more than most other things can. So this song hopefully describes the usually very inconvenient and somewhat painful process of each person sacrificing their own stance to adopt the position of Christ. On Your Side Tonight was actually a pretty fun song to write. Another lesson that I learned in my first year of marriage is that I'm kind of prone to feel like my wife is out to get me every time that we don't see eye to eye on something. It's almost like there's this war that's waging between two empires, and I have to ready myself for the battle in a way. I'm pretty quick to defend myself. I'm pretty quick to just grab any ammunition that I can. But what I realize is that sometimes I would really hurt this person that is closest to me, this person that I've committed my whole life to, and who in turn has committed her whole life to me. When you pause to realize that there's this sacred and holy vow that's holding you two together, it gets a lot harder to see your spouse as an opponent in that case. My wife has been so gracious and so patient. She's very quick to remind me that she's not out to get me. She's not out to bring me down. We are on the same team. And she really does have my best interests at heart, and she wants what's best for the marriage. And so I'm a lot slower in getting to that place, but I'm working on it. And I'm really grateful for the second chances that she gives me. So I've always loved the hymns of the church. They're very creedal, they're very unifying. They declare these truths of God that are really good to revisit, that we often need reminding of. Personally, when I enter into a corporate time of worship, it's hard to slow down my mind. It's hard to calm my heart. A lot of times it's difficult to be rid of all the distractions, to focus on who God is and who I am in light of that, to focus on why I'm there and what He might be saying to me. So, in an effort to almost contribute to the preservation of the art of hymn writing, I thought I would try my hand at writing a hymn of invocation, one that helped to center me in body and in mind and in soul. A hymn that really called on the Lord to remind me of His nature, of what He's all about, of the purpose of coming before Him in worship. And really, I hope that this song, as much as it is an expression of our desire to be close to God, I hope it's a way for God to kind of speak into our lives as well and breathe His peace into us. Growing up, faith seemed a lot easier than it does now. I pretty much accepted the teachings of the church, the teachings of my parents, pretty much without question. But as I got older and as I got more independent, the questions that I did have in my heart were kind of rising to the surface, and it felt like the rug that I was standing on was pulled out from underneath me. Entering into college, the battle for my heart was really waging in full force in hindsight. A lot of the things that I was pursuing, some of them, a lot of them were really, really great things, other things weren't, but none of them really fulfilled the desire that I had for truth and for purpose and for identity. So whatever it may have been, be it relationships with girls, be it trying to make money, even defining myself by my own musical abilities, I had really felt, I'd grown to feel disconnected from the faith that I had grown up knowing. I had a lot of the peripheral blessings in my life of security and friendships and promising opportunities, but I had disconnected myself from the source of those blessings. So this song really came out of that place of wanting to be reunited with Jesus and know him as a friend, know him as a leader, as a guide, and come to know him really as Lord of my life again. So Stop Your Striving hits pretty close to home. Throughout my life, I found it really hard to let go of past failures, of wrongs that I've committed or ways that I haven't lived up to what I thought I should. I've always felt pretty captive by the notion that it was my responsibility to right my wrongs, to undo my offenses, to correct the course in a way. And I think it's, a lot of us feel that from time to time, and it's a good thing to seek forgiveness from things, but I found that in my life I had adopted a pretty harmful perspective in that I thought it was within my power to create a new way of operating, to undo all the bad and choose a new and better way. You let that perspective play out a little bit, and all of a sudden you've got yourself fooled into thinking that all the good things in your life were your own doing as well, and that's a really foolish way of seeing things. The truth is that I am not the ultimate giver of grace. I am especially not the ultimate healer of hurts. It would be absolutely crazy to think that I could have manufactured a life this full of blessing, this full of substance. The greatest gifts that I've ever received were completely unexpected, completely undeserved, and the only credit belongs to the Lord. So this song came out of my eyes being open to that truth, that he is so good, so generous, so gracious, and that he really longs to demonstrate that and prove that to each and every one of us. There's a prayer in the first book of Samuel where Hannah, who had previously been barren, was giving thanks to the Lord for the birth of her son, of Samuel. In that song, she talks a lot about God's ability to flip things on their end, to raise the poor to places of honor, to bring down the prideful, to preserve the righteous, to provide for the needy. Her song, her prayer is really a great and beautiful example of faith in God, trusting in his nearness, in his goodness, in his unchanging nature, and I would love to have that kind of faith. I think we often define our lives by the peaks and valleys, by the highs and lows, probably because they're the memorable moments. But I think the way we grow our faith, the way we take the most strides in our faith, that's found in the in-between moments, in those day in and day out practices of seeking the Lord and listening to his voice. Jesus is really the instigator of all renewal, and we're all wanting renewal in one way or another. And so this song expresses the desire to walk daily and closely with Jesus and to value his word, to value his scripture. I really loved getting to work with Michael Agnew on this tune. He's got such a unique ability to voice these things. He's got such a powerful proclamation in his writing, and so working with him, I think, really added a new dimension to the record. So one of the things that I was looking forward to most about getting married was the chance to see things through a different lens. A lot of my friends that were married before I was, or my parents, or people that I just looked up to as great husbands and wives, they consistently told me that was one of the most fun parts of being married, was learning to see yourself and other people and even God in kind of a fresh light. I believe that God speaks to all of us in unique ways, in ways that we can uniquely understand and decipher. And what I'm figuring out is that he speaks a little differently to me now than he did in the past. Or maybe I'm just learning to hear him in a new way that he's been speaking all along. But I was really looking forward to that, to engaging life and faith in a completely new context, and to engaging God in a new arena. So I certainly have not been disappointed in that, but challenged all the more, actually. So that's what the song Better Days is all about.